So what I'm going to do first is wash the carrots. Don't need this many carrots, but I'm making a large quantity, so I will be using quite a fair bit. Normally you would only make like a kilo and a half worth of carrots. That's all you'll need to make it. However, I'm making a lot more as I've got Ramadan coming up, as well as I've got a large quantity to make anyway. So I'm now going to peel the carrots. This is my peeler. So then you need to peel the carrots. I'm using one of these peelers. It's a normal peeler, so you can use any that you have at home. I will then cut the ends off once these have all been peeled. So I'm now going to cut the tips and the bottom of the carrots off and take off any bits that I think are no good. So now what I'm going to do is I've got this Kenwood machine here, and it does really nice grating, so we want to grate them. If you don't have a machine, you can use a normal grater, medium, large, whichever you prefer, whichever grains you prefer in your halwa. I will add a few in. Hopefully this doesn't go crazy on me. So you need around a cup of ghee. If you're doing more, then obviously you need more. Usually it's around about a cup of ghee for about 1 to 2 kilos of carrots. So you need just under a cup of sugar. You can add more or less depending on your taste. We add it towards the end of making the halwa. I tend to go by taste. I like it quite sweet. So you need about 2 cups of milk. Remember, the less carrots you make, the less milk. So I'm also going to add in some saffron. I like adding in saffron. It gives that a little bit of a hint and a bit of a flavour. The brand I'm using is Foodcore, but you can use any brand saffron that you like. We'll only need a few strands when it's time to actually put it in. I also put in some elaichi powder. That also gives it a bit more of a flavour and a nice taste as well. Elaichi powder is also known as cardamom powder. So we have around about 1 cup worth of ghee there, which we're going to put in first. Followed by the carrots. Then we're going to add in about 1 to 2 cups of milk, depending on what consistency you want it, how soft you want it, how creamy you want it. Thereafter, we will add in the sugar. Start around about 3/4 of a cup of sugar, add extra or less depending on your taste. We will then add in some elaichi powder. Again, depending on how much you're actually making, you would use 1/2 a spoon to 3/4 of a spoon of this teaspoon, small spoon. Then we'll add in a few strands of the saffron. Yep. Last of all, we have here some sliced or chopped almonds. We have some cashew nuts, which I'm going to roughly chop up. We also have some pistachio kernels without the shell, which I'm also going to chop up. We're going to use these 3 as garnishings at the end. So I'm going to use this pan. It's a non-stick pan. I prefer to use a non-stick pan as it tends to cook it a bit more better without sticking to the bottom. We're going to place it on a medium to high heat for now and wait for that to heat up. So first in goes the ghee. This is butter ghee, by the way. You should ideally only use butter ghee. Can't substitute the ghee for butter or oil. Okay, so I'm now going to add in some carrots, however much you want to cook. So now I'm going to mix it just to make sure. As you can see, it's going to, this much carrots will shrink in size. Okay, so I'm going to turn the heat down to medium. I'm going to cover it and let it cook for about 10 to 15 minutes, maximum 20 minutes, giving it a good stir in between every few minutes just to make sure it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan. So it's been about 20 minutes now. Okay, as you can see, the quantity has reduced to half. It's been about 20 minutes now. As you already know, I made a lot more than normally I would. So 20 minutes is quite a long time. Normally it will be done in about 15 minutes or so, 10 to 15 minutes. The aim is to get it as mushy as possible. So a little bit more, still a little bit hard. It's now time to go on to the next stage. As you can see, the oil is separating from the carrots. The carrots seem quite mushy. They seem like they're going to blend in. So now we're going to add in the milk. Okay, so now we've put the milk in. The consistency of this mixture is still loose. We want to keep mixing it until all of the milk has actually dried out. You'll know when the next stage is ready, when the actual ghee starts to separate from the actual mixture. By that time the mixture should be quite thick and stable and there should be no liquid left in here. Meanwhile, whilst waiting for the liquid to evaporate, I'm going to quickly rough chop all these garnishings so that it's easier just to sprinkle on top when it's ready. So I have these flaked almonds. They are decently flaked. I just want to just break it up a little bit more. You can buy them as sliced, as flaked, as however you like to add them on. Buy them ready-made like that. I'm going to do the same with the pistachios. I'll do it bit by bit. You can use a chopper. Alternatively, you can use a chopper. So the chopper gives you a kind of more smaller chop than what you would normally have if you did it yourself, if you have the patience to do so. So these are the cashew nuts. You could either slice them very thinly if you like, or you can grind them. I'm going to grind them. So I've tried to keep them a bit more bigger as opposed to powder, because you want to garnish it, you want to still have a bit of that texture in the halwa. As you can see, it's getting thicker and thicker, and we want the whole mixture to be nice and thick. Okay, so now the consistency is nice and thick. You can see that the milk has more or less evaporated. So before it goes any more thicker than this, which we would like it to do, I'm going to add in the rest of my ingredients. First I'm going to add in some elaichi powder, around about a teaspoon. Yep. I'm going to add in pinch or two of saffron. Now I'm going to add in the sugar. Like I said, sugar as per taste. So I like my Gajar Halwa to have some nuts inside it. So the stuff I've made for garnishing, I'm just going to add a bit of it in and cook it a bit more. So I'm now going to add the pistachio. Not too much, this is better on the top. And a tiny bit of the cashew nuts. So I've mixed in the nuts, almonds, pistachios and cashews. Some people also like to add raisins or sultanas into it, which you would do normally at this point. The rest of the nuts I'm going to use for garnishing when this is ready to be plated. As you can see, it's now ready. The ghee is separating from the actual mixture. It's nice and thick and it's ready for plating. Now the halwa is ready to be plated. Some people like to eat it directly from the pot into a bowl with some ice cream, nice and hot. Some people like to plate it like I'm going to do it and leave it to cool and then have it a bit later. Or some people like to even just keep it in the fridge overnight and have it a bit more colder the next day, etc. So I'm going to plate it. I'm going to first spread some ghee on the bottom. This helps it to just come off nicely as opposed to me having to scrape the bottom. So now I'm going to plate it. I want to avoid taking all the excess ghee. Now I've plated it, I'm just going to quickly garnish it with some flaked almonds. Some pistachios. And some cashew nuts. Now this is ready to be left to cool and to enjoy later.